Oh, blooming hell. Ceratosaurus, you've been going to the gym? Wow, that's bulked. Whew. Get him. Whatever he's eating, I need to eat it. Hey up everybody, hope you're doing well, hope you've had a fantastic week. Weather's getting a bit warmer, so hopefully in better seasons. But just this week, there's actually been a new publication on a sort of new old theropod dinosaur, and it's this fella here, Tameryraptor. So before I explain what a Tameryraptor is, we have to sort of explain what a Carcharodontosaurid is, how it relates to Carcharodontosaurus, and how it got to this sort of situation. So the Carcharodontosauridae is a group of theropod dinosaurs that range from about 154 million years during the late Jurassic period to about 90 million years, possibly a little bit further than that, although elements of that material is a bit disputed. It actually could be a belosaur material, and they went extinct during the Turonian period, so around about when my boy Tethysaurus appeared. Now, generally, they're actually ranging from about medium-sized to large theropod sizes, so we're talking animals like Concavenator, which could be about 6 meters in length, up to some of the giants like Carcharodontosaurus and Giganotosaurus and Mapusaurus, which are pushing around about possibly the 13 meter, maybe even 14 meter mark. We're not entirely sure because the material that we have of those animals is somewhat scant, so full size is not really known, but around about T-Rex size in terms of length is pretty comparable. Now, in terms of weight, some of these animals probably weighed around about maximum of maybe 7 tons, although I've heard recent estimates of Giganotosaurus getting up to about 10 tons, but who knows? Could be lighter, could be bigger, I don't know. I mean, are you going to weigh a Giganotosaurus? I'm not. Also, I've just realised I'm pronouncing it Giganotosaurus. It's not, it's Giganotosaurus. Giganotosaurus. Now, the most famous out of this group is the namesake, Carcharodontosaurus, specifically Carcharodontosaurus saharicus from North Africa. So Carcharodontosaurus itself actually lived from about 100 million years ago to 94 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period, and it seems that there are 2 species of Carcharodontosaurus, Carcharodontosaurus saharicus, the type species and the most well-known, and the slightly smaller, slightly more southern Carcharodontosaurus igadensis, though recent papers and publications have questioned whether it actually is a species of Carcharodontosaurus. Now let's get into the history and clear up a quick misconception about Carcharodontosaurus. So Carcharodontosaurus's type specimen is not the specimen that got bombed during World War II. It is in fact 2 teeth that were found in Algeria, and they are what's known as a syntype. They're the name-bearing elements of a dinosaur. Now, the skeleton that got blown up in World War II, that was actually discovered in Egypt in an area of the Baharia Formation. And yeah, the whole story about it being the Megalosaurus, that's typical for theropods during that time. Yeah, we'll not get into that. So yeah, this image here is actually the image of the sort of Baharian Carcharodontosaurus. Just checking if there's any planes flying overhead. Nope, we're okay, I can continue. It was made up of parts of the skull and parts of the postcranial material, including leg bones and some vertebrae. Now, for a few years, this was about as much as we had on Carcharodontosaurus. Apart from some isolated teeth and isolated bone here and there, this was as good as it was going to get. Until, the Allied forces decided to drop a bomb on the museum it's been held in, which was in Berlin. Yeah. Our bad. But fear not. During the mid-1990s, an expedition led by Paul Sereno actually went out to Morocco to the famous Kem formations, which is where the neotype of Spinosaurus comes from, and they found an absolute corker of a Carcharodontosaurus specimen. Now, yeah, whilst the specimen was basically just skull material, it was more complete than the previous specimen of Carcharodontosaurus, the Egyptian specimen, so this actually sort of kept the name Carcharodontosaurus because this was named the neotype specimen, basically a new holotype specimen, and it actually gave a lot more information on Carcharodontosaurus than the previous specimen did from Egypt. However, these 2 specimens are a bit, there have been notable differences made between the specimens in previous years, and this is put into question whether they're actually the same species, whether this specimen actually retains the name Carcharodontosaurus and this one needs a new name, or, well, we didn't really know. Really confusing situation, basically. That was until now. A new paper actually looked at photos taken of the original Egyptian specimen of Carcharodontosaurus saharicus and reanalyzed those photos and found major differences between this specimen and the neotype, the Moroccan specimen of Carcharodontosaurus saharicus. And basically, this specimen was analysed and found to actually be a distinct species. And yes, we don't have the specimen anymore, but the photos are sufficient enough where we can describe and diagnose several distinctive features between this animal and Carcharodontosaurus saharicus, and it is generic level. So not only did we need to put this in a new species, but a new genus. So introducing Tameryraptor. So the full name of Tameryraptor markgraffi means Richard Markgraf's fief from the beloved land. And yes, it took me many takes to say that for some reason. I don't know why. Now, don't be fooled by the use of the name raptor in the genus name. Tameryraptor was a pretty big animal, up to maybe 9 meters in length for this particular specimen, and whether this specimen was fully grown or not, we don't know. This animal could have got a lot bigger, probably about the same size as Carcharodontosaurus saharicus, but until we find new specimens of this particular animal, we simply don't know. So some of the key elements that distinguish Tameryraptor from Carcharodontosaurus are a developed antorbital area of the maxilla, a small nose horn that you can actually see on this image here. The teeth themselves are very symmetrical, they're not curving back like you see in Carcharodontosaurus, and there's a particular spike-like accessory to the trochanter on the femur, so whether this animal had a more powerful torque in the leg muscles than Carcharodontosaurus, we simply don't know, but this is a distinctive feature that we see in the skeleton. And in fact, here you go. There's the tooth of Tameryraptor, and you can see it's pretty much more symmetrical than the tooth of Carcharodontosaurus saharicus over here. And in fact, here I've got some Carcharodontosaurus saharicus teeth in my collection that I actually picked up while I was out in Morocco, and they are pretty impressive teeth. I mean, just look at the serrations you can see down there. Absolutely corking things. No, I've not tried to use them as steak knives. That would be a bad idea. So the environment that Tameryraptor actually lived in was pretty lush and pretty abundant, with all sorts of different crocodilian species, fish species. There was even Spinosaurus. There was even the giant Parala titan, which could have been a prey item of Tameryraptor. Now, the asymmetrical teeth of Tameryraptor probably meant that it was niche partitioning. Basically, it was feeding on other prey items, or feeding on prey items in a certain way that would keep it from competing with other large predators, such as Spinosaurus and the abelisaurs that it shared its environment with. Now, an interesting note about the paper is that Tameryraptor had no diagnosis of the texture of the maxilla, and I'm guessing this is due to the resolution of the photos, which is fair enough. But this is actually something that was brought up in a previous paper based on elements of a new large Carcharodontosaurid from the Chem that was distinct from Carcharodontosaurus saharicus. And even though it was a scrappy little bit of maxilla and jugal bone, it was diagnosed, and unfortunately still doesn't have a name, but it was diagnosed on the basis of the texture of the maxilla, and this is seen to be quite diverse across Carcharodontosaurus and Carcharodontosauridae. Now, I'm not really going to go into this topic any further because this is a topic for another day, but I will cover it in the future. Just wait. So there we go, off to a great start with 2025 with a new giant species of theropod in Tameryraptor. Absolutely brilliant to see that we're sort of resolving Carcharodontosaurus saharicus, because this specimen has been a bit limbo recently. But Carcharodontosaurus saharicus is still here, the neotype holds that name, but the original really good specimen that we had, which was not the holotype, let me just remind you, that has a new name, and it just goes to show that North Africa was quite diverse at the time with Carcharodontosaurid species, and maybe there's still more out there. Maybe the Bahariya Formation in Egypt, where Tameryraptor is from, maybe that holds a few more, but we'll see what happens in the future. Alright guys, I'll see you later. Ta-ta.